Hi, thank you for joining me for Bible study. And I just want to spend this Mother's Day weekend looking at Psalm 139. Psalm 139. It's a long one, but we're going to just break it up into chunks here. So let's tackle the first 6 verses. O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thought afar off. You comprehend my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You have hedged me behind and before, and laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot attain it. And so we see here the Lord's extensive knowledge of us. He knows us very thoroughly, doesn't he? You've searched me. You know me. And you know whatever I'm doing. You even understand my thoughts. Psalm 139 is very personal, isn't it? That God knows all of our ways and why we choose the ways we choose. So that's knowledge. That's something for us to remember as well. But what does it mean? Well, and that's where he says, there's not even words on my tongues, but you don't already know where it's coming from. And so you've hedged me behind and before and laid your hand upon me. That God is the one who's guiding us day by day. And so it points to his being the shepherd, doesn't it? And so the Lord knows. He knows all that's going on in us. And the psalmist says, it's a psalm of David, says, it's just too wonderful for me. I can't even wrap my mind around it. How you know me better than I know me. And then he goes on, verse 7. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall fall on me, even the night shall be light about me. Even indeed the darkness shall not hide from you, but the night shines as the day, and the darkness and the light are both alike to you. And so this is talking about God is everywhere. And so he picks the farthest extremes that he can think of. How can I flee from your presence? That you don't know where I am and what I'm doing there. If I was to ascend to the highest point in the skies, there you are. If I'd go to the depth of the depths, even my bed in hell, behold, you're there, even there. If I go from the farthest point in the east all the way to the farthest point of the west, from the morning to the sea, because if you're in Israel, that's how that east and west works. There your hand shall lead me. So now that should cause us to ponder here. This sounds also like the shepherd as he's guiding us. So now it gives us a new perspective on what he was talking about the first time. That the word on my tongue, you know it all together. You've hedged me behind and before. Your hand is upon me. He's talking about how God guides us even in our thoughts and in our words. And the Proverbs talk about that. That the thoughts of the heart and the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. So this time he's talking about, even when I'm not talking, the Lord is guiding and protecting, though, isn't he? Because what I don't know in the dark, he does know. What I can't see beyond me, he's got his hand on. Your hand shall lead me, guide me, even when I cannot see, even when I do not know. But how do I know where he's going to take me? Does he know where we're going? Verses 13 through 16 then. For you formed my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret, and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance, being yet unformed, and in your book they all were written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet there were none of them. And so here he's talking about his intimate knowledge of us goes from our very beginnings in conception and in the womb all the way to the last day we live. God has already written them out and what was going to happen on those days. And that's kind of challenging for us because we don't like all the things that happen in our days. Why did he do that? Well, we go back to what we've already learned, that he's shaping us and changing our thoughts, guiding our thoughts and our answers. Because God is more concerned about our character than he is about our happiness. He's more concerned about our person than he is our pleasures. And so, but what about those things I don't like about me? Even that come from how I was born or whatever. He says that we were intricately woven together. That phrase in verse 13 and in verse 15, where I was covered, means that I was knit together, knotted together. And I skillfully wrought. It's talking about almost like an embroidering. Both of those words see a lot of use in the tabernacle, God's holy place, the tent that he would dwell in amongst the children of Israel. And so that's preparing us for that New Testament, New Covenant understanding that we are the temple of God, that we are his dwelling place when we've been born again and given his Holy Spirit. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Unique is another way of looking at that word wonderfully. Very distinctly made by God. Each one is a little different than the other, in other words, and you know that to be true. And it should make us almost fearful of God and how he's put us together. And so life is very important from conception forward, because it's not just our fingerprints that are unique. It is all of us that is unique. And the master craftsman has made us the way he desired for us to be. We may see them as flaws. We may see them as handicaps. But they're just the way God made us. And it's for us to let him use as he desires, as best as we can. And so your eyes saw me even before I was born, and you knew how all these days would be. And at that thought, verses 17 and 18, how precious also are your thoughts to me, O God. How great is the sum of them. If I should count them, they would be more in number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with you. He says, I am just overwhelmed with the thought of you. And that also teaches us something about what God knows, that God knows more than we know that he knows. He knows things we don't even know that we don't know. That's a lot of knowing. And also in that is that would include the what ifs and could have beens. Those kind of things keep us awake at night. What could have been? What if such and such had happened differently? God knows. And it is all in his control and his workings. And that's troubling because what of the evil that goes on? Well, David pauses to remind us not only of what God's attitude is towards wicked and evil, but that, well, let's see what his reaction is. Verse 19 through 22. Oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God. Depart from me, therefore, you bloodthirsty men, for they speak against you wickedly. Your enemies take your name in vain. Do I not hate them, O Lord, who hate you? Do I not loathe those who rise up against you? I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them my enemies. And that's troubling to us because we were told to love our enemies, right? And that God does bring blessing to both the just and the unjust, the unrighteous. But it is that reminder that God is also righteous and holy, who does what is right, and will bring judgment against those who continually rebel against him. And so our God is a righteous God, and we are to be too. We are to shun the wicked that is offered to us, even as we may pray for them and bless when the opportunity presents to bless in the name of God, that they would know our God. But we're not enabling, we're not even encouraging sin. And so there's that tension, isn't it? And it's a hard tension sometimes. Some of us steer too far towards rejection, and the sinner knows nothing of God's grace and mercy. And sometimes we veer too far towards compassion, and they know nothing of God's righteousness. And so this is where David is veering towards one of those, isn't he? But in other places, we take the whole context. We see both God's righteous and justice and our shunning of sin. We would not take counsel with them and not, what is it that Psalm 1 says? We wouldn't walk in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scorners. But rather, we're going to worship our God who's made us and known us. Because there's an element of humility in that. And that's what those last two verses are about. We too are sinners, and we don't know all of our wickedness. So David says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my anxieties, and see if there's any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Because I don't want to be the wicked person that someone is supposed to shun. Because I don't even know that I'm being wicked. That's where we need each other. God uses us in community to reveal our selfishness, to reveal our blindness to our own sin, our hard-heartedness, our impatience, whatever that is. And so David cries out to God, help me remove the log in my eye that I can see clearly when others have a speck in their eye. Search me and know me. because you know me better than I know myself. And lead me in the way everlasting. My prayer for me, as well as I pray your prayer for you. God, you know me. You know my heart. You know my sin. And you know your work within me. Help me to shun the wicked ways within me, first and foremost, so that I can walk in the straight and narrow, in the way everlasting. A lot going on in Psalm 139, but a time of worship, a time of praise. Because our God, from the day in the mother's womb, has been working us as a loving parent towards completion. Thank you for joining me. God bless. God see you. We'll see you next time.